Mvula said, "To see the light of the world is to be the Baobab tree." Today, I'm going to talk to you about how the Baobab trees can teach us to see transitions in a new light. Have you ever seen a Baobab tree? No worries if you haven't. To my knowledge, they're not that common in the States. Now you've seen your first one. Baobabs are a prehistoric species that can live up to 5,000 years, and they're venerated throughout Africa, the Caribbean, South and Central America. In Africa, baobabs play a central role in many traditions and are known as the tree of life because of the sustenance they give. They're also called upside-down tree because of the way their branches splay, making them look like roots. I saw my first one in 2016 on the beautiful island of St. Croix in the US Virgin Islands. A coworker and I decided to get some fresh air at lunch, and we ended up going down this little road at the bottom of a mountain, and all of a sudden this ginormous tree appears on the left. It had to be as wide as the house next to it and 6 times as tall. And I am not kidding, these trees grow up to be 100 feet tall. The one that I saw looked like the spirit mother of all elephants. It was majestic. So we pull over, we get out to inspect, and my friend, she's a local, and she tells me what she had been told by her old people who had been told by their old people, and that is that the trees were brought over as seeds by enslaved Africans centuries ago. The tree that we saw started as a seed braided into an enslaved girl's hair. Her mother gave it to her to protect her just before she was taken. The trees grow big enough to act as a house, and they also grow fruit rich with nutrients. But the most important thing about these trees is that many people throughout the diaspora believed that these trees were able to carry spirits between this world and others. So, no matter where the girl was, her mother would be able to connect with her. And she would be able to connect with her ancestors. She wouldn't be lost. Now, I have no romantic notions of slavery, but I was struck by the idea that something so beautiful could have such tragic provenance. You see, I was at one of those transitional points in my life where I was trying to sift beauty from my own little tin cup of tragedy. My tragedy was the practice of law in America's criminal justice system. I was just coming off a 10-year stint as a public defender, where I handled everything from shoplifting to homicide. And to say it was grueling work is an understatement. On the one hand, you've got to deal with difficult people, overzealous prosecutors, harsh Old Testament judges, and people who've been accused of some really heinous crimes. On the other hand, you've got some seriously good people who could have been absolutely amazing if they'd just made better choices, if they'd had maybe another $50 on Tuesday, or if they'd had somebody to listen to them and give them good advice on Monday morning. And the thing was, crushing as public defender work was for me, leaving was one of the hardest decisions I ever had to make. And that's because I defined myself as a public defender. And I also felt like I was giving up on people, leaving them to be eviscerated by a broken system that has no empathy. But I had to get honest with myself about the toll the work was taking on me. At that time, for my own peace of mind, I had to leave. I had to redefine myself based on a dream. And it was there in that moment that I fully appreciated how hard it is to make a change. Even if it's something that you've been planning, hoping for, praying for, wishing for, when you're standing there on the ledge, that's when transition feels impossible. It feels completely upside down, kind of like that baobab tree. And that's because stepping into the unknown is scary, disorienting. And I think part of the reason is that even though we've been told a million times by a million different people that change is life's constant, that change is inevitable, a lot of us on some level still feel like change means failure. And on another level, we react to change like it's a kind of death. And though change can lead to rebirth, nature has shown us, rebirth, death, is not a prerequisite to rebirth. And rebirth can be a very beautiful thing. So, impossibility be damned, I made the leap and decided to answer a decades-old calling to write fiction. One of my short stories, my first short story, ended up being nominated for a pushcart. And thanks to the awesome mentorship of two lovely writers, Natalie Dunbar and Karen White Owens, and also thanks to my writing accountability group, my first novel is due out in 2021. I made that leap, and so far it's really working out for me. And I think the first thing that we need to do to successfully navigate transitions is to really come to terms with the fact that change is a natural part of growth. In President-elect Biden's November 7th speech to the nation, he talks about how America is at yet another inflection point, moments in time when we make decisions about who we are and who we want to be. He points to Abraham Lincoln in 1860, saving the nation. He points to FDR in 1932 with the New Deal, JFK in 1960, Obama 12 years ago. Biden said, a country is defined by its inflection points. And the same holds true for people. One thing most public defenders do is get to know their clients. In 10 years, I handled thousands of cases, and I had the honor of sitting down with thousands of people and getting to hear their stories, getting to find out how they had ended up with me. And one thing I gleaned from all of those stories is that, like a country, different people's lives are made up of different transitions and moments in time when we make decisions about who we are and who we want to be. And it's critical that we navigate them mindfully. So, another big thing that we have to do is accept that change is a really hard thing to wrap your mind around. Sometimes we're so rooted in the past and fixated on the future that we miss the fact that now is a time of great change, and that change, like time, is an ever-moving current. According to the U.S. Census Library, in 1900, there were 4.8 million women in the workforce. Now, there are 80 million women in the workforce. In 1975, there were 19 women in Congress. Now, there are about 127 women in Congress. In 1998, nobody I knew had a cell phone. In 2020, I don't know anyone without one. And there are all sorts of great articles and TED Talks about how technology is changing the way we work, think, and live. In fact, technology is having such a big impact on our understanding of the world that according to the book, The Half-Life of Facts, 50% of information published this year in physics will be wrong in 13.7 years. In math, it'll be wrong in 9.17 years. In psychology, it's 7.15 years. Change is ubiquitous. So, what does that have to do with the little girl in a baobab tree? I took a few things from that story that I think will be helpful with transitions, whether it's living on your own for the first time, leaving a job, a marriage, getting sick. But before I begin, there's an old African proverb. Wisdom is like a baobab tree. No one individual can embrace it. There are many things to take from that story. I will share my 4. The first, bring your seed with you. The seed is different for everyone. For some, it could be a word, a song, a prayer. You have to figure out what yours is and be true to it. For the little girl, the seed represented her mother's love, her feeling of being protected, her connection to home, her memory of the strength and freedom she knew before she was enslaved. That was a huge thing then. The slave owners didn't want you to remember your culture or your home. They wanted you to forget all vestiges of your humanity because that was evidence of your freedom and your internal power. Name your seed and speak it aloud every day. If your seed is peace, if your seed is grace, if your seed is self-love, if your seed is freedom, speak it aloud daily. The law of repetition is that repeating behavior makes it more powerful. Repeating phrases helps your brain to solidify connections. Repeating thoughts will help them to be absorbed by the subconscious. Number 2, like the Baobab, reach for the light. Light is consciousness. Light is creativity. Light is life. Move if you aren't close enough to it. Easier said than done? I get it. Step 1 in moving when you're paralyzed by fear, indecision, one of 857 million different kinds of pain, visualize it and go big. Nobody can hear you thinking. Look to the greats for inspiration. Neuropsychology published a study that showed imagining ourselves moving certain parts of our bodies trains those muscles almost as well as actually exercising, actual movement. So you want to be the next, I don't know, Madonna. Visualize yourself up on stage, singing, dancing with a bunch of talented dancers. You want to be the next Einstein? Visualize yourself solving a blackboard filled with mind-blowing equations. Whatever your goal is, movement starts here and direction comes from here. So remain open, remain flexible. Visualize yourself reaching your goal. Visualize yourself grasping it. Feel it in your hands, warm and whole. And come what may, continue to reach for your light. Number 3, don't be afraid to let dead branches break off. New ones will grow if you let them. Allow yourself to be the person you need to be to get to where you want to go. It's kind of like reincarnation, but it's intracarnation, which means being multiple iterations of yourself in one lifetime. In Detroit, we've got this great museum. It's called the Detroit Institute of Arts, and they've got an awesome Southeast Asian collection, and my favorite piece in the collection is a statue of Ganesha, a Hindu god. This god represents one aspect of the infinite divine, which is so vast that only multiple faces and iterations of God can give humans an idea of its vastness. And that's a good analogy for humans. In one lifetime, we wear many different faces. And in order to get in touch with our best selves, we have to give ourselves permission to be all of ourselves. And that brings me to my last and final point, which is strength. When I touched the Baobab tree, it was almost as if I could see how those who came before me found themselves in the same place, drawing strength, remembering when we were kings, remembering further even, remembering back to when we were each other. So my final point is to remember your ancestors. Keep them alive by telling their stories. Borrow their strength if you have to. If you don't remember your ancestors, I'll share one of mine with you. Her name is Tere Loke. She was a woman who wouldn't let her seed go. Enslaved in St. Martin, this strong-willed woman refused to be bound. One day, she escaped to the mountains. But life was not meant to be easy for Tere Loke. After a vigorous hunt, the slavers found her. And when the slavers found her, when they captured her, they beat her, they tortured her, and they tried to make an example of her to the other slaves. How? They hacked off her breast, leaving one so that she could suckle the master's child. The slavers thought that this would break Loke, but they were wrong. It did not break Loke, because she was determined to reach for her own light. Their darkness only made her taste for freedom stronger. So when Tere Loke healed, she ran again. And this time, the slavers did not find her. She set up camp deep in the mountains amidst the Baobab trees. And like our own Black Moses, she came back to the plantation many times and freed many more slaves. For all who hear this story and allow their hearts to be touched, you too can draw strength from ancestor Teriloke. Why? Because that something inside of you that identified with Loke and the unnamed Baobab girl will guide you. Find your seed, reach for the light. Don't be afraid to let things go. Know the strength that lives inside of you. It won't be easy. If being a public defender taught me one thing, it's that literally, figuratively, we're all one step away from or living inside of our own prisons. But we need to recognize that we do have the opportunity to free ourselves, to be as many versions of ourselves as we need to become in order to be the best version of ourselves. They say Mother Mary's tears turned into carnations when she watched Jesus on the cross. Pain turned into flowers, and a million different kinds of beauty were born of that moment. I think we all have the potential to be like those tears, to transform. And so, as you move forward on your journey with all of its various inflection points and transitions, I leave you with one last African proverb, and that is, to get lost is to learn the way. Thank you.